we thought we heard that Pence was not going to solidify the vote. So everybody just kept saying push forward, push forward, push forward, and we just kept pushing. We got shot with tear gas. Then when we got all the way up to the front, me and a big group of guys started busting the door down. One guy brings in a pole, shatters the front glass doors, and we just start yanking them, and then they start spraying us with pepper spray. And a couple of our guys, in fact, one of the sergeants in the Army that's another I've trained with in Pennsylvania, he got hit square in the face. He's dying right now, and I don't have my IFAC kit, my combat lifesaver kit, and my medic pack where I can take care of him because I have combat lifesaver training, but I can't do anything with him because I don't have my kit here.
So what's the situation right now?
They're just staying there. We've been told that that everybody got hit with an emergency alert that they need to be off the Capitol building by 6. It's like, okay, so what are you going to do if we're not? How many of us are there? What are you going to do? Because this is our house, and they, I don't know why they think it's theirs. Well, I do know why, but that's gone on for decades. But it's time for the American people to wake back up and take this back and give this back to the people. That's where it belongs. These people don't, in fact, here's the thing that people don't understand. Because we have lost civics in school. The Constitution is a contract from me, the people, to a governor to govern me by my authority and my decisions, the people. We give him that authority to govern me, and that's the contract. He can't overstep that contract, and they have overstepped that contract thinking that they have the right to squash it and do whatever they want to it and rule us instead of govern us.
This is Citizens for Community Media. Dr. E. Michael Jones is here, and Tom Larrison is going to join us later. And Tom and I went to the Stop the Steal rally, January 6th. And I've already made my observations on another show. But to sum up, my takeaway on that is that they were operating on some very simple principles that ended up leading some to go into the Capitol and then get the media capturing that and then getting severely demonized. But the principle they were operating on was, if I can get close to it, if I remember right, Benjamin Franklin wanted to put on our coin, rebellion to tyrants is obedience to God. And they had signs like, when tyranny becomes law, rebellion becomes duty. They were always saying, everywhere you went, they were always saying, that's our house, we're the government, we pay them, they have to listen to us. Those kind of themes were constantly going. No matter who I met, they just immediately galvanized around that. And I'd say 80% seemed to be, making a guess, 80% appeared to be Christian. So it was easy, boom. We all believe in Jesus, but we also all believe that rebellion to tyrants is obedience to God. What they did, that steal, was tyranny. And now it becomes a duty to confront that. But if you look at the 13 colonies, they were all Calvinist. Calvin himself disassociated himself from John Knox's understanding of the right to rebel. And John Knox Witherspoon, who tutored over 100 of the founding fathers, James Madison in particular, took John Knox's notion of the right to rebel. Okay, and that was, Scotland. And you had the Masons and you had the Presbyterians seeming to agree on that motto. Okay, and now we're seeing when people really play that out and act on it, it doesn't look that good.
Well, you're talking about two issues here. You're talking about an obsolete form of warfare, an obsolete political ideology, and an obsolete understanding of the basis of reality. You put them all together, and you're going to have problems. And we've in a sense, we've already had a preview of what was going to happen. We had the preview in Charlottesville, where you had a bunch of people who identified as white. Okay, that was their first problem. And they assumed that they had the guarantee of rights in the Constitution, the right to assemble and the right to free speech. Well, all of these things had been abrogated, and they didn't notice. They didn't realize that it had already happened. So the analogy I always like to use when people use this rhetoric from the Constitution, from the 18th century, from the Enlightenment, the Scottish Enlightenment, is, here's your musket, shoot down that F-16. That's the type of thing. That's what we're dealing with here. So in Charlottesville, the variation was, Richard Spencer. Here's your spear. There's charge the machine gun nest. And make sure you wave that spear. You're always confronted with throughout history with people who don't understand the state of the art of warfare. Warfare is now largely conducted by computers, which means it's largely the result of information. And if you can control the information, then you can control the battlefield. Well, that's what happened. This was what happened over the period since Donald Trump was elected. First of all, let's be frank about this. Donald Trump was one of the first people who really made a successful use of new information technology. He got elected because of Twitter. He would tweet something in the morning, and all the newspapers would run his tweets, and they'd ask him questions. They'd go out to all these people, and that's how he won the election. Well, 4 years later, they caught on to that. They caught on to that, and they ended his Twitter account. So now what's he going to do? So what we went through was a coup d'état. We've had coup d'états in the past here. The Kennedy assassination was a coup d'état. 9/11 was in some sense a coup d'état. But to give you the classic example in the relationship between the coup d'état and information, if you were in a banana republic, the military would surround the TV station or the radio station with tanks. And then you'd put your guy in there, and then the new guy would have a monopoly on information. That doesn't work anymore, because there's too much information and there are not enough tanks, and in a sense you can't find any one location that you can surround anymore. So it's become so multifarious, it's become so widespread, and yet at the same time so concentrated into fewer and fewer hands that it would be impossible to do that. You can't maintain the control of information in the way that presidents could in the past. You can only do this now at the sufferance of the new oligarchs, the big tech information oligarchs. You have to do what they want. If you don't do what they want, then they deprive you of information. So we all witnessed this last year as they started to close in on Trump. We watched as we were deplatformed, one after another. The ADL was the loyal servant of the oligarchs, deplatformed a lot of people. And by the way, I think we should mention the fact that the ADL turned on Donald Trump.
Recently?
Just today.
Oh, today.
Jonathan Greenblatt tweeted, it's a tweet again, that Donald Trump should be removed from office before the end of his term because he's a threat, that he was engaged in an insurrection, all this type of stuff. We should pause for a moment here and draw the lesson here. No one tried to appease the Jews more than Donald Trump in his 4 years in office. And when you lick the boots of the Jews, they will show their gratitude by kicking you in the teeth. And this is a lesson that Donald Trump had to learn the hard way in the expensive school of experience. So that's the kind of tech side of it. But what we're also talking about here is that people have categories in their minds that don't correspond to categories in reality. So you think that this is what the situation is, but it's not the situation. That's obviously the point of all the propaganda that we've been going through at this point. They are trying to label what's going on. So it's obvious, should be obvious, to anyone that when Antifa is burning down Portland, they're peaceful demonstrators. That's obvious. But when the Trump supporters show up in Washington, they're domestic terrorists. This is all a function of information. You know, putting the label that the powerful want on these people to demonize them and to destroy whatever political power they had. Now, I've talked for years now about the white boys, like the people that Richard Spencer, that crowd. They do it for the oligarchs. The oligarchs don't have to do this for them. They do it themselves. They apply this label to themselves, which guarantees that they're going to lose every time. It's not an accurate label, but they apply it to themselves for some reason or other. So you put all these things together, and you've got a recipe for disaster. So to get back to the actual, what happened, I mean, you were there. But, you know, as you said before we went on camera, just because you're there doesn't mean you know what's going on.
No.
And in many ways, you're probably the last one because you're in the middle of a huge crowd. It's actually happening. You never know what's going on when it's happening. But the other point is that you have to have categories to understand. There's content and there's form. And until you bring form and content together, you're not going to understand what's going on. Now, you know, we can go back to the history of philosophy. Plato's the guy who came up with this idea. And he had this idea that there were forms in this realm way above us, above the moon. And that everything we did was an imitation of those forms. Well, Aristotle was a student and said, well, where is it again? And what's there? Well, Plato would say, well, there's the form of the bed, the form of the chair. And so when the artisan makes a chair, he got that idea and he got it from up there. Okay, well, it turns out that it's not that simple. Because you need experience to understand the forms. And sometimes the forms aren't that simple. So to get back to what we're talking about here, you've got a large crowd, you've got millions of people. I assume that was the number, or 1 million people, whatever. You were there.
1, 2, or 3 million. I mean,
Okay, a huge number of people, but there's always they're heading towards something. Okay, and so there's going to be a front to the line, and so you can get people at the front of the line who can, in a sense, direct that mass of people. You don't need a lot of people to do this. So I had this experience 50 years ago. In 1970, the United States invaded Cambodia, and there was outrage on campuses, and it led to the shootings at Kent State. You know, a couple of students were shot by National Guardsmen. So we're going to protest, so we're marching down from where we were on the west end of the town. We're walking through Fairmount Park, big park in Philadelphia, and suddenly these people run out of the bushes, and they're all carrying Viet Cong flags.
And you actually saw it?
I was there.
Okay.
So not only did I see it, I knew who they were, because they lived in the same apartment building that I lived in, and they were communists. These were guys who had all gone to Cuba in the Venceremos Brigade. They were members of the Communist Party. And this was a tactic. So you run to the front of the parade, and now everyone's marching behind you. Well, this is similar to what Antifa did. Whether, you know, it could be other groups, it could be any type of group, you know what I mean? But some group took charge of this thing, and this is where the collaboration took place here. Okay, there was a collusion in Charlottesville. Okay, the police should have stood between whatever it is, Richard Spencer's group and Antifa. Instead, the police pushed Richard Spencer's group into Antifa, and then there was violence, and then they blamed it on the white boys because the white boys are always guilty. Okay. Another form here, Germany has had huge numbers of anti-COVID demonstrations. 1 million people. So you know it's 1 million people because all you have to do is look at where they are. With the Brandenburger Tor in the background, if you fill up that space, it's 1 million people. So when it's the Love Parade, they say, oh yeah, it's 1 million people because they like the Love Parade. When it's the same, when it's COVID, no, it's 13,000. Well, no, it's not 13,000. We're smart enough to realize this. Okay, so you got all these people heading toward an operation. So that's one thing. Mayor Bowser announced the day before, we don't want any type of federal troops here. We have enough troops. And so you're setting up a situation it's very similar to what happened in Germany. Some of those demonstrators, you don't know who they were. You never know who these people are. They decide, we're going to break into the Bundestag, which is the capital. Well, they do. Well, you can't break into buildings like this unless they let you in. And so they let them in, and then as soon as they let them in, then the whole situation flips. And now all of the people who object to the government's COVID measures are domestic terrorists. That was the plan from the beginning in Germany. Well, guess what? It's the plan here too. Because we've all seen the videos now of basically there aren't enough cops to stop anything. The cops simply pull the barriers back, and then some of them are even waving them on. So this is a fix.
So it's like 9/11, a stand down. In other words, hold it here. You're supposed to get up there in 2 minutes and snare those hijacked planes. Well, Cheney had a stand down order. So hold it here. When we were there the first 2 times, cops everywhere. Here's how far you can go. It was very clear.
Right.
They stood right at the line, and I got there late. We got a little, so they're already across the line. It said you can't go across this line. I get there, and they're already up on every little statue, all the way up there, and I'm thinking, I'm going here. One of the things I was hoping to do when I was there is be some kind of influence that they wouldn't fall into a trap. If you, I really don't know about Charlottesville that much, but I knew that there were going to be provocateurs.
Right. Well, they said it. They announced it. This was a completely different strategy than the George Floyd strategy, which is to burn down the cities and then blame it on Trump. And they could do it where there were Democratic mayors because the Democratic mayors weren't going to do anything about it. Okay, so that's what's happening here. So why? So it's like, come on in. Okay, so then they go in. As soon as they get close to getting in, then that's the trap, because now we have to shut down the hearings, the session of Congress that is going on at this point. Well, whose interest is that in?
Yeah, so we saw, here's Alex Jones with his bullhorn going through town, we need another 1776. And I'm going, what's the deal? Aren't we here to be more in prayer, praying that the evidence will convict them, and this is a sacred time, and they're going to listen, and hear this evidence, it's going to be overwhelming? That's not the time to go into a frenzy and impose the frenzy on them.
Look, as soon as you say 1776, you're saying, here's your musket, there's the F-16, shoot it down.
Yes.
It's antiquated. You're not dealing with categories of reality now. You're dealing with outmoded, obsolete categories that had been abolished a long time ago.
They were going with that mantra, we're the government, and we hired them. No matter who I talked to, sophisticated people, unsophisticated, they all agreed to that. It all came out.
It's the only thing we have as Americans. We're uniting as Americans. Okay, so to give you another example, Ferdinand Marcos was the dictator of the Philippines, and his regime started to fall apart. And the question is, when they start marching towards you, are you going to gun them down in the streets? Well, the Filipinos were all Catholic, and they all had that Catholic sense behind what they were doing, and they prayed the rosary. And I think if you pray, you can get divine help. And they did. And there was a peaceful transition of power there, because they used, of course, they had a better category in terms of what they were dealing with. That's what happened there. It's not going to happen here with these obsolete invocations of an obsolete form of government, an obsolete form of warfare that has been. It's not there. It's not relevant anymore. So they let them in, and the people go in. Some of them are know what they're doing. Some are just following. They go in there. You put your feet up on Pelosi's desk. You steal a lectern, and now they caught that guy, and they're going to throw him in jail and throw away the key because he's a domestic terrorist. As soon as you put the label on them, you've lost your rights. He could end up in Guantanamo, with the Muslims.
And I would have told myself that was totally probably going to happen. I mean, it's like, first of all, I don't believe in doing that, okay? And I would have told myself, I'd be risking that. And what's the risk? Why risk that? It's like...
Well, you're swept up in the emotion of the moment. And it evoked, do you remember the protest at Columbia University? Famous picture of this kid.
In 1969?
68, I think it was. But the kid's there, he's got his sunglasses on, he's smoking the president of the university's cigar with his feet up on his desk.
Oh, yeah.
And this guy may well have seen that picture. And he was acting according to that category. You know what I mean? Whatever that said, you know, we were sincere young people who felt blah, 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 and so on and so forth. I've been through this before with the Right to Life movement, when they decided that they were going to channel the civil rights movement and engage in civil disobedience. Okay, this was Operation Rescue.
Oh yeah, okay.
You remember that?
Oh yeah.
I mean, we met with people here. I mean, probably one of the first times I met with you.
Yeah, the Lamb. I stayed out there. They were out there 2 weeks.
Yeah, they were here and they were going to shut down. Actually, I was there. I'm a reporter, but I was there and I walked into the abortion clinic because they had taken it over. I was there. So, you know, we have this tradition. It's, you know, Henry David Thoreau wrote a thing on civil disobedience when he tried to apply these ideas to the abolition movement. You know, what if a slave escapes to Concord, Massachusetts? Are we going to turn him back, or is the mob going to show up and free the slave? They channeled it. The man who channeled it again was Martin Luther King. You know, peaceful sit-downs. You know, that type of thing, peaceful protest, you know, turn the other cheek, all this Christian stuff informing a political movement. And then it comes to Operation Rescue, and I'm thinking, you know, once again, we're handing out spears and we're telling these poor people to charge the machine gun nest. Because it's the oligarchs who have the power. Truth is the opinion of the powerful. This is what Thrasymachus said. And so they are the ones who give you the label. So you can't say, well, I'm a patriot. No, you have to wait. And what does the New York Times say you are? Mm-hmm. They're saying you're a domestic terrorist. Well, you can't contradict them because they are the rich and the powerful, and truth is the opinion of the powerful. Mm-hmm. That's what it is. That's what Thrasymachus said. And if you go away from Christianity and believe that the truth will set you free, you're not going to have that privilege anymore. You will go back to the old way, which Socrates talked about.
I was at the market today and I saw an old friend, a little bit older than me. I've known him for way back. He's a well-known Christian in town. And we're talking about this, and he goes, did you just see the pictures? I mean, he was like, oh, it was so terrible. You know, like they imprinted onto people's mind, and he would be one of the most astute ones to try to see through it. But the media can convince you what it was.
Yeah, they were terrorists. They were domestic terrorists. It's obvious. Well, no, it's not obvious. They didn't think they were. I've talked about this before. People who voted for Trump. Okay, that's a category of reality. We can find, they have names, you know, they registered to vote, so on and so forth. Well, Hillary Clinton called them deplorables. That's a category of the mind. So she tried to do something, didn't work because it was Hillary Clinton, and she's
not too good at it.
Everybody despises Hillary Clinton. So it didn't work, but that's obviously what she was trying to do. In other words, you're trying to impose your category on those people. And it didn't work. But now we have the rich and the powerful who are going to determine who you are. Again, we talked about it before. Exactly the same thing happened in St. Louis during the wave of iconoclasm that swept the country in the summer, where you had to tear down statues. So the Muslim, the white boy Muslim, who's speaking, he has the authority now because he has wrapped the mantle of Black Lives Matter around his shoulders, and they're always right because of their skin color. And he says it's black versus white supremacist. And I had to enter the fray, and I wrote an article saying, no, it's not that. It's Catholics versus Jews. That's what it really is. And as soon as he heard that, as soon as he read the article, he challenged me to a debate, and I beat him. Not so, you can watch the debate. It's probably up there somewhere. But the point here is, why do I say I beat him? Well, the statue's still there. They didn't tear down the statue of St. Louis because that would be absurd. So, I mean, so what you're talking about, the real battle is who gets to apply the labels.
Well, who won this? I mean, they assaulted the Capitol hoping to win, right? They mean, let's go in, because by going in, we're going to win. We're going to prove it. And I met people that think we did win. That, you know, I really felt a rush of patriotism when I saw this.
We the people. We the people. It's our government. And we proved it by walking. No, you walked into a trap. That's the problem. You walked into a trap because your mind is operating according to obsolete categories like we the people have some type of, we declare.
We're the government. Don't they know that? And we're going to here to prove it, that we're the government and we pay you. Well, they didn't prove it very well.
Look, the whole point of what's been going on for at least the entire Trump era, and the year before that with Mike Pence and Riffer in Indiana, is an attack on representative government. The oligarchs, the Google people, the Twitter guys, the Facebook, the Zuckerbergs, the Jews who control the mainstream media, okay? They don't believe in representative government. Any minority, what are the minorities that we're talking about here? The 1% in terms of the top income, creditors, that's a big part of that. Jews, always a minority wherever they live, and homosexuals, always a minority. So you've got these minority groups that hate the idea of representative government, because if it were truly representative, they wouldn't get anywhere. If the government really had the power, they wouldn't get anywhere. So what happened here? They spent 4 years demonizing Donald Trump as the worst person who ever walked the face of the earth. And then when the election comes, it's a landslide in favor of Donald Trump. And now we know the election, every graph, you see the same thing, including the recent election in Georgia. Every graph, it's the Republican is up on top, it's going like this, there's the Democrat. And then you get the 3 o'clock in the morning, and then suddenly they shoot straight up.
Defies gravity.
There it goes. The line goes straight up, and the Democrat wins. Well, why are people voting at 3 o'clock in the morning? Something's happening here. And the point of this session of Congress, it was the last-ditch attempt to get evidence of fraud on the public record, the congressional record. You could enter it on the congressional record. Well, it didn't happen, precisely because
they lured the people into thinking, oh, instead of being praying, in fact, they had interviews with Christians that went in, and once you're in the Senate, then they started praying. Well, that's what Wesley and then that's what Wesley, the Methodist Church, those guys, they said, hold it here. You guys may be marvelous Christians as far as you fast more than us and you do this more than us, but what you're involved in is against God's law. It's rebellion. You can't cover the rebellion with all this Christianity and think all of a sudden it's not rebellion.
Well, Aquinas says there is a right to rebel. There is a right to rebel, but how do you, if there's no other recourse? And then if
they thought there was
first of all, the main recourse that is supposed to stave off rebellion is the vote, the ability to vote and choose your representatives for a representative government. Well, that was violated during this election, massively violated.
But it would have been better, in my mind, had they decided, let's stay back, let's not give any appearance that they could use, and let's just sit here and wait, and some of us can pray, and let's hope they're forced to see the evidence. That would have been a better picture. That's the last thing they wanted to see. They've never wanted to see evidence for 9/11 and consider it.
No. That is the control of information. That is the basis for their regime. And they're not going to let it go. And they're going to clamp down, double down, make it worse. So you've got an obsolete construct here. What is the obsolete construct? The main obsolete construct has been conservatism. It's always been struggling to keep up with a world that is far ahead of it. No matter what. I mean, in terms of technology, in terms of ideas, in terms of anything. I was at Hillsdale You know, I gave a speech at Hillsdale. It's the cover article in this month's Culture Wars. And I was invited by a group of young people there who could not invite me under the auspices of Hillsdale College.
Right, yeah. And then there's something about the American First.
So I said, well, what's the name of your club? He said, the Charles Lindbergh Aviators Club. That's obviously hearkening back to America First. They are all America Firsters as understood, you know, coming out of the 1930s. That's clearly what they are. And the administration at Hillsdale will not allow that form of conservatism to be represented. That was the only real American form of conservatism. It was America First. Okay?
I had family members that were on the speaking tour for that.
Sure, it was the Midwest. It was all, you know, manufacturing. It was Henry Ford, Charles Coughlin, Charles Lindbergh, all of those people. By the way, that man, that so-called Muslim in St. Louis said, as soon as we tear down the statue of St. Louis, we're going to go after Lindbergh Boulevard.
They're not giving up.
Wait a minute. So St. Louis because he burned the Talmud, and Lindbergh because he mentioned the word. I think I'm seeing a pattern here. That's the real pattern, and that group is always trying to remain invisible and always uses proxy warriors here to do this. But so Hillsdale, what was conservatism? Well, it was a replacement for America First, because America First ended the day after Pearl Harbor. Now, how do I know that? Well, because I knew Henry Regnery. And Henry Regnery had a publishing house that published Russell Kirk in 1953, The Conservative Mind, and then he did William F. Buckley, God and Man at Yale. These were two pillars of conservatism. Buckley went on to form National Review. And it was a replacement for America First. So we had to go throw isolationism overboard. No more isolationism. We're going to fight communism because we can't afford to be here alone. Well, Henry Regnery, as I said, was the man who created that publishing house. His father was the treasurer for America First. And he told me that the day after Pearl Harbor, the FBI showed up and said, give us your mailing list.
But this is the same as what happened here. This was the second American First movement with Trump, to a degree. And as soon as they lured the Japs into the Pearl Harbor trap, and as soon as they lured them, via, in my mind, Alex Jones and Antifa and the whole gang, they somehow got lured to storm the Capitol, and then boom, it was a Pearl Harbor. And then the FBI has been going to all these people and snatching them up.
Yeah.
Virginia State Senator had to read. I mean, it's like...
There's going to be, it'll be, so to get back to Germany, that invasion of the Bundestag harkens back to the Reichstag fire, where you set the Reichstag on fire and then you blame it on your enemies, and then you go out and you basically arrest everyone because now you have this outrage behind you, and you can use it to get rid of your enemies.
Right. The girl was warned. We don't know what happened, but the girl was warned. Don't go. There's a gun. She didn't hear it. Maybe we don't know the true story, but she didn't hear it. But she goes in anyway. Other Christians were saying, "Don't go in that building. Don't. It's a trap. It's a trap."
Actually, people were actually saying that.
Yes, I heard the testimony, because one testimony was, "Come on, let's go. It's your house." They were repeating the same mantra that the Trumpers did, the Antifa. So
Antifa was saying that.
That's what all the witnesses were saying.
Yeah.
And then some couples were saying, we didn't take the bait on that, but we had friends that did. Okay, so they and then the other people were saying it was surreal. It was just like surreal. Yeah, because the deception, and you couldn't sort it out because your theology didn't go deep enough to say, no way, that's a trap. You just don't assault the symbol of authority. On what grounds?
Yeah.
That's tyranny? Oh, tyranny, then we do it. Well, slow down. That concept is more, you got to work that concept better than you are.
Yeah. So where were you when the woman got shot? When did you hear about it first?
The most I heard about it, I stayed across the line. They had a line there that said, don't come across here, which people just ignored. And the cops didn't, they were no cops, so they were all. And then we decided to go back to the metro, and on the way back we met like 4 or 5 people that had been right up nearby, like seeing the women shot or something. I can't remember like details. And when they left, one had like an Antifa helmet, and they had no Trump insignia. So some of us said, I think they're Antifa that we were talking to. Okay, so that really, because we hadn't heard anything. Like you said, when you're there, what do you hear? Because nobody knew what was going on inside.
The cell phones were blacked out. That's what I've heard. Did you make cell phone calls when you were there?
I don't remember. I know that the mayor shut down everything.
Yeah.
No bathrooms, and Judy, we had to go crazy trying to find a bathroom, and we finally almost bribed the guy. And then the metro was shut down nearby there, because we had planned, what was this?
That's a trap. You were in the trap. The trap is sprung shut, and you're stuck in there.
Oh, yeah, but I was, I wasn't going to, I could sense, hold it here, I'm going to play this wisely, and I was a little bit of a smart aleck to a point, because you're kind of upset about this. I mean, you can't. I mean, they're setting you up, and they're getting orders from who knows.
When did you know you were set up?
We didn't really know anything except talking to those people. We got, that sounds like Antifa.
This is only something you realized later, like
yeah, because we hadn't heard anything.
The next day or something like that.
Oh no. We did get to the metro. And when we really found out, we how'd it go? We just started hearing stuff right away, and we pieced it together. And then when on the way back, on the next day way back, we stopped on Highway 80 at the plaza. We didn't get out of there for 3 hours because everybody's stopping at the plaza on 80. There's a lot of plazas, and boom, like they look at you and they knew you were, even if you didn't have anything, they knew you were part of them.
So they wanted to talk?
Everybody wanted to talk. Tell me, and they had story, like you just learned tons of things. Because some were like right there. Most of them were all up. We were back. Most of the people we talked to, and so the testimonies were vivid. I mean, one guy, I did get his phone number, but he preferred text, and his wife was like real vivid, They're saying, come on, let's go, come on, And some suckered to it. I said, and then she didn't want to admit it at first because the big argument was, well, they were just all Antifa. And I'm going, no, I think the Trumpers went for it. Oh, no, they didn't. No, they didn't. And then she out of her own mouth, she said, yeah, I have to admit, a lot of them went with it.
Yeah.
Okay. Because it's the same line. That's our house. We're the government. And see, that's right. They lured in. They hadn't thought it through.
No. So the other category that we need to bring in to bear here is the color revolution. These were the CIA created this as a way of toppling governments. Tried it out in '53 in Iran when they toppled the Mossadegh government, and it was based on manipulation of the media, because the media even then were powerful. And the media then would create a scenario. They would broadcast the scenario because they were all bought off. They were all bribed by the CIA at that point. And the people would get out in the streets, and it worked like a charm. Actually, it didn't work like a charm. The first time Kermit Roosevelt tried it, the Shah, who was supposed to take Mossadegh's place, got panicked, and he ran away. And then he came back, and Kermit, the CIA's saying, you did a great job, Kermit. You can come home now. And he said, no, I think I got one more chance. And he did. He succeeded. Well, this was amazing. You can topple
a new weapon. A new weapon.
It is a new weapon. And C.D. Jackson would talk about psychological warfare, in his speeches he'd give. But that's what we're talking about. You can win the battle without firing a shot. No, you don't need conventional weapons anymore. So they tried it the next day immediately in Guatemala, next year, Guatemala, and then it keeps going. And then they privatize. So basically you got a guy like George Soros who is now funding them, and they have a playbook now, and there's certain things that you do. So they went and did it again in Tehran. This was 2009. Now, this is after the revolution. They want to topple the revolutionary government. And it's the same formula. You convince the people are out on the street. The color was green. There were all these women. It was a feminist kind of revolution because there's resentment against wearing the hijab. So they're wearing the green headbands, and they're marching down. I've been in these marches. You can get a lot of people on the street there, and they're marching down the street, and they get to the Basiji headquarters, and that's the Revolutionary Guard. They're the people that like the militia for the government, and they're standing out there, and someone gets shot. The shooting starts, and then there's a woman who gets shot. Her name is Nada. I forget her last name. She had a hyphenate last name, and she became the martyr, the official martyr of that revolution. Everyone talked about her as the martyr. Well, Press TV looked into it, and it turns out it was identity theft. They stole this woman's name. They created this false scenario of, even to the point of, there's got this actor lying on the ground and they're pouring blood around her head. So she didn't get shot. But that was that's an essential part of a color revolution. Someone's got to get shot. It happened. Victoria Nuland did this thing in Ukraine. They orchestrated a color revolution there. And no, it was real people that got shot. So what you do is someone starts shooting and you immediately blame the government, and you do what they've been saying about Assad in Syria. He's killing his own people, which immediately delegitimizes him. And therefore the people are automatic. Again, once the label, ISIS or whatever it is, just working as proxy warriors for the United States, they're freedom fighters. And they are justified in doing whatever they do because Assad is killing his own people. So it's always these imposition of labels here. Now, the same thing happened here. I predicted someone was going to get killed.
When?
I did. I didn't
before
know.
Before it even happened?
Before it happened, simply because why do I do this? Okay? Because I can look back at history and see there are examples of something similar.
This is their pattern on how they use this weapon.
And so what is the category of reality that I'm dealing with here? Well, it's color revolution. That's a real thing. It's not just me saying, oh, they're X, Y, and Z. There is a real thing. It has a certain scenario. And part of the scenario where somebody gets killed. So I don't know what happened here. I've seen the video, and I still don't know what happened.
Well, I mean, the reports are that somebody, right, I mean, what I'm hearing, and I haven't looked exhaustively, I'm going by what I was being told, is that right when they were going to do the weighing of the evidence at a crucial moment, they throw the chair in the window.
Yeah, they're clearly they're trying to break this window.
But right at a crucial moment, when this is what we're waiting for, they're finally going to hear the evidence, and yeah, what are they thinking? Kaboom! A chair, and this lady, and I'm only guessing, for whatever motivation, she wanted to be, she was ready to be the soldier.
She was a 14-year veteran, Air Force veteran.
Recently divorced, apparently.
Okay, so she's in intelligence in the Air Force. Okay, that makes me suspicious. The man, I've seen the video. You can watch the video. There's a man behind there. He's got a mask on. He's a security guard, and he's got a big gun. It looks like a.
Well, I saw the hand go up, and it was a dark hand, like it was.
Yeah, but then there's something white wrapped around his wrist. He's got something wrapped around his wrist, and he pulls the trigger. Now we're talking about 3 or 4 feet. We're 3 or 4 feet, and it's a very big caliber gun, 45 caliber gun, something like that. This is what I'm reading.
Yeah.
Well,
it wouldn't have that. It
well,
wouldn't do
wait.
that.
Well, no, wait a minute. I mean,
First of all, she said, "I'm all right." It's cool. That's
she
what I
said
heard.
that?
That's what somebody was saying. Because if
the bullet goes through her neck.
Yeah.
Now
she doesn't feel anything.
Okay. The bullet should have. There were cops behind her, with automatic rifles. Why is this guy shooting? Or did he shoot? Or what happened here? What happened here? I don't know. We have the video. You can have all the videos you want, but you still don't know what happened. We're going to have to find out in some type of detail. All I have to go on. It's like when you talk about the whole operation. You have to apply the principle of cui bono. Who profits? Who profits from the interruption of this session of the Congress? Well, obviously, the Democrats who don't want any evidence to come out of election fraud.
That's why, like Alex Jones, agent provocateur, hold it here, Alex. Aren't we? We're like, wow, this is a chance. They're going to hear the evidence. Isn't this exciting? Let's be quiet. Let's be prayerful. Hopefully they hear it right. And oh no, it's time to storm the Capitol when they're hearing it.
No, Donald, I saw Alex Jones. He was trying to have a rally outside it.
Yeah, I was there.
His operation was taken, whatever it was taken down. The platform he had rented or something like that was taken down. So he's telling the people to calm down. I don't think he was egging anyone on to go in.
Well, when he was going through the streets, though, see, I took some video. He's going through the streets with his entourage, and he's protected by bodyguards. And it's well, I mean, I can't remember specifically, but I'm just picturing, I just assumed, because I heard it all the time from him, we need another 1776. That was kind of the motif. He may have backed around and said we need to calm down, but you've already stirred things up.
Yeah, okay.
That's not the quiet prayer meeting that I was hoping would happen.
Yeah.
Because that doesn't help create peace in that building.
Yeah. Yep. So I'm saying, so I don't know what we don't know what happened to this woman. We don't. I mean, so I'm just from a forensic point of view. You got a big gun, a big caliber gun, and you shoot at 4 feet, maybe 4 feet away. 5 feet?
It could be. At first I said, boy, there's a lot of racial animosity. I've been there my third time. We had a run-in with a local guy that was just trying to assault us in a way, just...
Black guy?
A black guy, yeah. So I'm thinking, and then it looked like his hand, the guy was black, and I'm thinking, well, was there any racial component that might have helped him? But I can't go there because I hear another account that almost like whoever came through first, they're going to shoot. So I don't know. It's hard you have to take time to, what happened?
Yeah. So all of this type of happens in the complete absence of any type of official government inquiry. And the precedent was set, with 9/11. Was there any, there was a book that came out afterwards that was, written by, what is it, guy Zolikov, who said
complete.
It was a complete joke.
Yeah.
Our inspector was a made man, had his career set for him because he was the one that marshaled all of the Kennedy material into saying that it was a lone deranged gunman. So he was taken care of for the rest of his life. He was a district attorney in Philadelphia before he ran for the Senate. He was the front man for the abortion industry in Philadelphia when it was illegal. That's the type of guy he was. So, we're stuck here with these loose ends, trying to put them together.
Now, one of the things they had, the biggest thing you saw there were Chinese people that were opposing communism. They were definitely totally worried that if Trump didn't win, this was going to be a huge win for China. I mean, you could see it. What's your understanding of that factor? That this is now endangering us to more of a Chinese problem.
I think that there was. I've heard this from various people that when you got to the upper levels of big corporations, transnational corporations, that they liked the Chinese system better than the American system, and there was supposed to be some type of convergence between China and America, and that certainly was happening. Okay, that was certainly happening until Trump came in and rained on the parade.
In the late '60s, in Madison and that, I had a brother-in-law through a stepsister. They were Maoist, 1969. I mean, up there in Minneapolis. So I'm saying that was kind of a common thing. It hasn't left us. It's kind of there to be grabbed at.
That's right. That's right.
Tom, who I said in the beginning of the show was going to be late. Well, he was later than we thought, and so Mike was pretty much done, so he left, and so now Tom is here, and we can finish the show with Tom. And I want Tom to kind of talk about the trip. Now, Tom fell. He's working on a house project, and he fell and hurt his knee, and so he didn't think he could go. And then he decided he'd give it a try, okay? Mm-hmm. And so we had to walk real slow. He had to stop and rub his knee all the time. But it wasn't like we had to keep up with something. It was just do that. But I'd like Tom before he jumps into all kinds of, telling us what he saw and all that, I'm interested in him chiming in on what I saw, And I've been saying that what I saw was mostly Christians. Boom, right away, Jesus is like central to everything. And the next thing I saw was people believing that that the reason they're there was because this is we're the government, really, in a sense, and that we created that government, and that they work for us, we pay them, and they have to listen to us. We're not subjects, we're citizens, okay? So they're subject to us, okay? And that was immediately a belief of everybody. I'd like you to chime in on that and how much we heard that and how you felt about that.
Well, in my opinion and my understanding that, people in the United States are very patriotic, and they form together really fast when the tough gets going. And people are just, they're curious, and they want to know what's going on around their lives, in their neighborhoods, in their cities and stuff. Fathers and mothers do the same thing. And so we need to do this same thing with our government. We need to keep an eye on them. And that's what we were there for. We were keeping an eye on our government.
But the idea that we're the government, and they must obey. Tell me, talk more on that.
That's like our household. We govern our house. That's what we should be doing. And we formed the laws in our homes. You can't, bring dirt into the house. You have to clean your shoes. And the same thing with the government. We don't want them to get out of hand and think they can come through our house and our doors, dragging their dirt in and making us all look bad.
We were hearing that that's our house, right?
It is our house.
What were you hearing? What were some things you were hearing people say quite a bit? Even when we got on the metro right away, that was the theme. You remember that?
Yeah. Well, the theme was, with everybody, they're really upset about the fact of the manipulating, lying, cheating of our election. They cheated. They're trying to make fools out of us to make us think that we don't know what's going on. And we know what's going on. We know they cheated. We're not stupid. They like to think we're stupid, but we're not. We're very clever and we're very smart, because that's what God instilled in us, to be able to look past it all and see into it.
But do you think that they tricked us? Do you think that people should not? Do you think they should have gone into the Capitol building? I mean, sometimes they said the police they were waved in. The police let them in. Some say they jammed that door.
The same thing with Moses, and the magicians. They did the same thing. Hey, whatever you can do, I can do. And they called them in, and we're dealing with evil people, magicians, and they were conning us. It was a con job.
So we took the bait? Is that what you're saying? What do you think?
People did take the bait. They were...
so they shouldn't have gone. You think they shouldn't have gone in the building?
People, when they get in large groups, they get a little dumbfounded, and they need to be aware. I tried to keep aware. My knee was so sore, hurting like crazy, and it was hard for me to really concentrate a lot, but I was seeing what was going on. And I mentioned to you a few times, I said, that guy right there looks like an Antifa member. You remember? He was coming around the corner. I said, there's some more. Those guys don't look like the Trump people.
Yeah.
And they were coming in to cause trouble. I knew it. I had a feeling ahead of time there was something going to go on. I wasn't sure just what, but I was being aware.
But the reason...
and seeing what was going on.
Part of the reason they took the bait when they said, come on, that's your house.
That's right.
They were persuaded that they had a right to do that.
Yeah.
They had a right to go into that Capitol building. But wasn't that a trap?
Didn't the devil do the same thing to Jesus? Took him up to the mount.
So what should have
all
happened?
of this could be yours. Come on in.
What should have happened?
That could be yours. Come on.
Should we have just had a prayer meeting and prayed that the evidence would come forth, they would be convicted? What should we have done?
Prayed, I think a lot of prayer was going on all over that place. It was a love fest. It isn't what they made it out to be on the news. Everybody was loving on one another.
Yeah, 'cause you
everybody.
You didn't know what to expect. I'd been there twice already. Okay, so what surprised you, or what kind of like, what did you notice about it? Besides, like, it was a love fest, or
I would say all one mind and one accord. People were just so connected. They were so connected. It was just a wonderful feeling. It was nice, you know. We were connected, you know, and we were like mesmerized about just the awesomeness of everything around us.
Well, they had
it was so awesome.
They had a lot of preachers.
Yes, so awesome, and handing out tracts, and people were trying to make everybody aware of what we are as Americans, what we truly are, and that's what the whole thing was about, you know. And it was very exciting, and the flag waving, and everything. Everybody was like, we're going to get this done. We're going to accomplish this.
But they thought, but don't you think the Antifa then, because it seems like right when they were about to look at the evidence, somebody throws a chair through the window. The girl then follows. She gets shot, and then they use that as an excuse to not look at anything.
Exactly.
That was not a victory, was it?
Well, we don't know if that wasn't a setup by itself. They had too many.
I believe it was, and we fell into their trap.
They have too many professional camera crews in there. This was all highly professionally done. That's just not any videos. They took pictures of the gun coming through the window and it shooting so perfectly. Nobody's going to have their cell phone up at a perfect shot, and everything is going on like that. It's going to be confusion. And the cops are acting like, oh, get back, you guys. Oh, get back, you know, and not really doing their job. If they were doing their job, they'd be popping people on top of the head. You know,
but like you said, the day before,
and kicking them down.
The day before, that building was open to the public.
Yes, it was. They have a public arena. It's open every day except for Sundays.
So it was open. Even it was open today. I mean, on the 6th.
Go back today. Well, I don't know about Saturdays. I'm not sure about the
But
weekend,
I'm saying on the 6th, which was a Wednesday, it was totally open on a Tuesday for people to come in and out. And it wasn't necessarily, was it closed?
See, they got guards in there herding people around to the different places that you're allowed to be in the public arenas. And the one thing that I told you once before that is a part of our system, that anytime they got any kind of legal matters going on where they're trying to pass bills or anything, they have an area where the public can sit down and say yay or nay to a passing of a bill. And they will ask for a show of hands. Yays, how many yays are there? And you'll raise your hand. How many nays? And somebody, you know, if you don't want or not. And they'll say, well, the yays won, you know, over the nays. And so that's how it's supposed to work.
So in other words, with the Kavanaugh hearings, they flooded that court and they caused all kinds of disruptions, but I think they had a right to be there. And that was the same thing. So even in this, they technically, people had a right to be there? Is that what you're thinking?
Oh, in the days of old, man, when all the farmers showed up, it was a riot. It was a riot in there.
So people didn't feel like
days sometimes to argue issues out, but that's the way you're supposed
people
to do
didn't
it.
feel like they were doing anything wrong necessarily, right? And the cops didn't really make the point that they were doing something wrong. Was that true?
Yep, that's
And then the cops are acting like everything's fine, and then they go to the next stage, they're mowing them down.
Well, sheep being led to the slaughter. I mean, it was accidentally on purpose. I've always said that. They do things accidentally on purpose to make us look like fools. They want to make fools out of us. And so what is the news media doing? Acting like, hey, the conservatives are a bunch of fools. Look at what they did. You know? They're a bunch of whoremongers and terrorists and no counts. Nobody's.
You've been following this.
And that's something.
You've been following every detail of what's been going on for the last several months. So where do you think we're at now?
We're at a crossroads between what's going to happen. The people, I believe they aren't going to let it happen, and I think Trump has something up his sleeve. You know, he's just like that. He's always been like that. He's got so many things in the back of his head that he's working out. He don't tell nobody.
But everybody's turning against him.
Well, it's a part of the plan. It's a part of the plan.
So you're very optimistic.
It's a part of the plan. He's going to confuse a lot of people. So they will start coming out, and they'll start eating each other too. And they'll get crazier and nuttier. And the more outraged they get, the more they're going to show their faces, and the more everything's going to be exposed. It's just like, you know, a raging lunatic.
It seems like every time...
You push a raging lunatic's buttons, and he's going to get nuts, and pretty soon everybody's going to know he's around. You know, and they're getting their buttons pushed.
So do you think Trump will be in office? I mean, that's a hard question because it's getting harder and harder. You think he'll be in office still on the 21st? Or are you going to, that's a big guess.
I don't think, he's the man's man. That guy's, he didn't get in this race to lose. He didn't get into anything to lose. He's a winner. And he's going to make us a winner. And he said to us 1,000 times over, you never give up. Never, ever, never give up. Ever. Never give up. He says, you fight to the bloody end, no matter what it is.
So it looked
until
like
you become winners. Because you got to go through hell to get to heaven.
Well,
this is life.
He would say that?
Yes.
I never read his book.
Yes. You got to go through hell to get to heaven. You got to go
that is true.
through the dry lands, the deserts, to get to the water hole, you know, and it drives you to get there, but you got to go through living hell to get to that.
But the worst fear is...
Crawling.
The worst fear is that the Chinese will take advantage of this, right?
Well, we got a lot of it's just not the Chinese. We got the Arabs. We got a lot of people that hate us, and that was on purpose. They have a lot of people in office that purposely creates trouble. That's the part of our legal system.
We got to close in 30 seconds. What's the best hope we got?
Jesus Christ and Him crucified, and what He has in plan for us.
That's what everybody at that meeting, about 80%, probably would totally agree with you on that. So this is Tom Larrison, Peter Helland, and Dr. E. Michael Jones on Citizens for Community Media.